93,000 UK landlords left the rental market in 2025. Another 220,000 are forecasted to leave this year. And the people cheering them out the door are about to find out what replaces them. Spoiler alert, it isn't home ownership. I'm one of the ones still here. I've told my tenants their rent isn't going up for the next 5 years. Meanwhile, my own landlord just tried to put my rent up by £100 and my letting agent just put their fees up on me. Confused? You should be, because the system everybody wanted to fix is about to break in a way nobody is talking about. So I'm in a slightly strange position here. I've been a landlord for about 15 years. I've also been a tenant for around 8. Same person, both sides of the coin. So when people online start using the usual landlords are parasites, go get a job routine, I'm watching it from a home I'm renting in, while collecting rent from tenants I haven't put up in years. And what I'm watching happen on both sides of this market in 2026 is genuinely one of the messiest pieces of policy fallout I've ever seen. And this is what I want to talk to you about today, with data and also with a bit I'm not supposed to say out loud. The Renters' Right Act came into force on May the 1st, 2026, which has turned the housing market upside down. And I encourage all of you to check this video out if you want to know exactly what to do, regardless of what side of the fence you sit on. But some headline points you may want to know is that Section 21, the no-fault eviction route, is gone for new and existing tenancies. Every assured hold tenancy agreement is automatically converted to a rolling periodic tenancy on that date. Fixed terms ended, and landlords now need a specific legal ground under Section 8 to recover their properties. Alongside this, rent increases can only happen once a year via a Section 13 notice, and the tenant can challenge it for free at their first tier tribunal. Now on paper, this is a clear win for renters. However, in practice, the market started reacting 12 months before the law came into force, and the data, well, that's brutal. 93,000 buy-to-let landlords exited the UK rental market in 2025. That is 6% of all buy-to-let mortgage holders, which is up 65,000 across 2023 and 2024 combined. An estimated 220,000 further rental homes are forecasted to leave the private rented sector in 2026, according to Pepper Money modelling. Around 65,000 of those exits are directly attributed to the Renters' Right Act. 31% of landlords say they plan to reduce their portfolio. 16% they are considering selling everything all within the next 2 years, and only 44% of landlords expect to still be here in the market by 2031. Now another interesting thing is that selling with tenants in place, i.e. in situ, which used to be very rare, has now become the norm. Section 21 notices also spiked in the months running up to May 2026, as landlords use this as a closing window. Centralised data on Q1 2026 notice volumes haven't been formally published yet, so I'm flagging that as a bit of a data gap. But every letting agent survey is pointing in the same direction. And rents? Well, they're still rising, up 3.4% in the year to March 2026, according to the ONS. And in the northeast, it's 6.5%. Now surprisingly, London is the slowest at 1.7%, but we all know the rents are absolutely crazy there. And that's only because affordability has hit a ceiling, not anything to do with what is actually being fixed in this act. Now here's where it gets a little personal. I'm a landlord. I built properties in my hometown and I rent them out. Last year I refinanced to a painful mortgage increase, but my mortgage costs are now locked in for the next 4 or 5 years. And I made a decision given the circumstances of the economy and also because I really like my tenants that I'm not putting their rents up. Not this year, not next year, and not for the term of that fix. And before the keyboard warriors who despise landlords for no reason come for me, I didn't increase before refinancing either. A good tenant who pays on time, looks after the place, is well worth more than an extra £50 to £100 a month. It always has been. And good landlords, in my opinion, don't want to maximise returns at the expense of losing a good tenant. So that's my landlord side. But on the tenant side, things got a little bit sticky. My letting agent just wrote to me to state they're putting their fees up by 1% to absorb costs. My landlord, which is a large corporation by the way, just tried to raise my rent by £100. Thankfully I know a little about the game and I showed them local comparables to get this reduced right back down. And if you're in a similar boat, please do your own due diligence, my friends, to make sure it's a fair market rent that landlords are raising it to. So anyways, I argued, I appealed, I got it brought down. But here's the situation I'm sitting in. I'm absorbing rent and fee increases as a tenant, while choosing not to pass any of them on as a landlord. The only people winning here are the banks, holding the mortgages, along with the letting agents who are taking a bigger cut. And that should tell you something about who the system is actually built for. Now there is a story online doing the rounds that if you get rid of a landlord, you somehow become a homeowner. Because after all, the reason you can't buy a house is because landlords are greedy and hoarding all the houses, right? Despite data showing as of late 2025 and early 2026, there are over 1 million homes in England alone that are not in permanent use, which comprises of around 3.96% of total housing stock. But anyways, your beliefs, right or wrong, are strong. You believe that once a landlord sells up, at the very least you can now get cracking to buy your own home whilst your rent also gets cheaper. But sadly, that isn't how any of this works. You see, if your landlord sells up tomorrow, your credit score doesn't just suddenly improve. Your deposit, well, that's still required. You still need a salary, a guarantor, references, affordability checks, and you still need somewhere to live whilst you save for that home. Getting rid of a landlord doesn't put a deposit in your bank account. It just simply changes who you write the check out to. And here is the part that should genuinely worry you. The evil small landlord, the one with 1 or 2 properties who you imagine is sitting on a yacht right now, makes an overwhelming majority of the market. The most recent English private landlord survey shows that 83% of landlords own between 1 and 4 properties, and 45% own just one, with their median age being 59. This is not BlackRock. This is probably somebody's uncle or somebody's aunt who bought a flat in 2008. And when these people sell, the data from 20C shows that only 6% of former rental properties outside of London came back to the rental market after sale. In London, it's 11%. The other 89 to 94% are bought by owner-occupiers. So overall, this means the rental stock will fall. Fewer rental homes, same demand, if not higher, well, you can work out where the rent's going from here. Now this is the bit I actually want you to sit with. The build-to-rent sector, that's institutional landlords, pension funds, large property companies, currently holds 146,700 completed rental units across the UK. Another 108,000 are in planning pipeline across 12 core cities. Investment into the sector hit 5.2 billion in 2025 and is forecasted to exceed 5.7 billion in 2026. BTR occupancy is averaging around 97%. Now on paper that sounds professional, stable, well managed, and in some ways it is. But here's what changes when your landlord goes from a person you can simply WhatsApp to a company with a customer portal. You start by losing negotiation power. Try arguing that £100 rent increase down with a national operator who controls the markets. You won't be able to. The person on the other end of the phone likely also doesn't have the authority either. And so you lose some level of discretion. Whereas a small landlord can absorb a bad month for a good tenant. This is exactly what I guess I'm doing right now. But a pension fund cannot. The spreadsheet says what the spreadsheet says, meaning you lose that whole element of a human relationship. To a corporate landlord, you are a number, a renewal date, and simply a yield calculation. You are replaceable, and they will replace you in a second if the numbers tell them to do so. And here's where the structural, more serious problem kicks in. Small landlords are leaving the sector faster than the build-to-rent can replace them. Pepper Money warns that replacement supply will not keep pace with departures, and that the BTR construction pipeline has actually contracted, with Cushman & Wakefield reporting a 15% decline in homes under construction. So the market the Renters' Right movement is helping to create isn't a market with fewer landlords. It's a market with fewer, bigger, less accountable landlords who you don't know the name of. Now, it would be very easy for me to look at my own situation right now, with letting agent fees up, my own rent being up, and pass every single penny on straight to my tenants. Plenty of landlords are doing that, and providing they provide a good home and the rent is fair, I don't begrudge them. I am probably the stupid one here, because I get from a pure business perspective it's a rational move, and rightfully so. I'll probably get told by more experienced landlords that I'm running this more like a hobby rather than a business, and that most people only see a good landlord as an ex-landlord. But I grew up with no home to call my own. Genuinely, I was extremely poor, and the only reason I'm in a position to own anything now is I've worked, saved, and I've built my own homes, and I made decisions many other people simply don't want to make. I didn't inherit anything. I didn't get lucky on a postcode, and thankfully I knew in my early years that owning a home wasn't a human right. It never has been. It's a privilege you earn by working, by saving, and by making sacrifices, which a lot of people throwing the word parasite around online have never simply had to make. Being born in a country doesn't entitle you to ownership of a house within it. That is a hard sentence you need to hear in 2026, but it is the truth, and the sooner it's accepted, the sooner the actual conversation can start. Bad landlords absolutely should be found out, fined, and forced out, and I believe the Renters' Right Act will do some of that, and that part is genuinely good. But good landlords, the ones who don't raise rents on decent tenants, who fix problems quickly, who treat people like people, well, they're leaving too. And once they're gone, you don't get them back. Now, when you strip everything else away, here is where we end up. Firstly, the banks will win because they hold the mortgages on both sides and have repriced them upwards. Letting agents will also win because they have put their fees up regardless of regulation. Build-to-rent corporates will win because every small landlord exit clears the competition for them. And then the Treasury wins because tax takes from a handful of corporate landlords is far more predictable than from hundreds of thousands of individuals. The people who do not win, however, are small landlords being squeezed out of the market that they helped sustain for 2 generations. And then, of course, the renters, who are about to discover that the alternative to a flawed system isn't a better one. It's a more extractive one, run by people who will never know your name, never care about your circumstances, and never absorb a bad month for you. If you thought renting was difficult before, in my opinion, it's about to get a lot worse. I sincerely hope I'm wrong, but the data says I'm not.